It's a pleasure for me to introduce our speaker this afternoon, Secretary Rick Perry, was the 14th Secretary of Energy for the United States. As you all know, he was also the 47th governor of the state of Texas, the longest-serving governor of that state. But most importantly, he spent an entire career at the nexus of American energy and the business community and what they could do together to take advantage of America's energy resources and America's energy ingenuity. So, again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on introductions, and with that, I am pleased that the Secretary has chosen the chamber for his last public speech before leaving the office. I'm leaving? I just made news. Please welcome Secretary Perry.
Thank you, Marty. Marty, thank you very much. I was just telling the kids backstage this kind of humorous joke about a guy who was not a good boss. I guess he was a really hard guy to work for, and anyway, and he had finally made the young person that he'd worked with so mad that he'd quit. And this guy was really demanding. And anyway, this young person was in charge of putting the speech together for this big, important speech that this self-important guy was giving. And anyway, he grabbed the thing and ran out on the stage and opened it up, and it said something like, "To hell with you, I quit. You're on your own." So fortunately, that's not hopefully what this speech says here. So that's the last one. But anyway, Marty, thank you. It's awfully good for me to be back to the chamber. We were here just before and to address the business leaders and particularly those of you who have invested in America's energy future. I always like to remind people that while Washington sets policy for the nation, those goals can only be achieved when it treats you as a senior partner, as an equal partner. You drive our progress. And as I conclude my time as the Secretary of Energy, I believe that is more true than it's ever been from the standpoint of what I've seen, what I know, and working with the private sector in particular. And I am just delighted when I look back over the last years at the progress that we've made together. I think it's important for us to appreciate what we've done together, how far we've come. We kind of need to step back and remember where we once were. As I was a young man transitioning out of the United States Air Force into the private sector in the mid-1970s, the Department of Energy was just opening its doors in 1977. It was 4 decades ago. America was producing way too little energy at home. We were importing way too much from other places around the world, and in some cases, places that weren't particularly friendly to the United States and our values. And as a result, some of you in here are old enough to remember gas lines and the things that we saw out there. Gas lines were up and unemployment was up. At that time, the conventional wisdom from Washington was pretty clear. Americans were told that the age of abundance and affordability were over. We were told that we could no longer produce enough energy. We could not sustain the way of life we had had in the past. We were told that even if we could sustain that, it would do irreparable harm to our environment. And so they were told to trim their sails, tighten their belts, buy a sweater, downsize your dreams, and let government regulate this scarce supply. But in their short-sighted deliberations, they forgot something that was blindingly obvious. They forgot about our country's history of expanding supply, of changing entire economic landscapes, of doing it through this phenomenal power that we call innovation. They forgot how only 30 years before this period in our history, we had split the atom. 20 years after that, we had put a man into space, and 9 years after that, an American walked on the surface of the moon. But I'm proud to say there were plenty of Americans who didn't forget that. And while Washington continued to work against them, something refreshingly different was happening in many of our states and in the private sector. In places like my home state of Texas, taxes were being reduced and regulations were being reined in. We were providing both the incentive and the freedom to innovate. And with innovation came a revolution in technology. The major breakthroughs in hydraulic fracturing and directional drilling happened to have begun in my home state. And at DOE, in our national labs, research and development not only made this technology possible, but a substantial amount of other technologies as well. And today, President Trump has brought to Washington a commitment to rein in regulation, put innovation squarely in the driver's seat of our economic and energy policy. He signed off on new pipelines, removed these draconian restrictions on responsible oil and gas exploration. And let me stress just how proud I am of DOE's efforts to revive and revitalize nuclear energy. John, we were just talking about a conversation that I had literally on an airplane coming back to D.C. yesterday with a young man and a young lady who I sat in the aisle with. We were talking about this, the millennials and how they are looking at taking care of the environment and how you square being able to support the nuclear energy industry and the work that I've seen that DOE is doing to promote renewables, the work that we're doing on battery storage and energy efficiency. The president's pushed through tax as well as regulatory reform. I happen to think, and there's good evidence to back this up, that he's revived America's sense of purpose and opportunity. And so manufacturing is booming. Jobs are on their way on an upward trajectory. Wages are soaring. Opportunities just kind of bursting out all over. And America is in the midst of a truly historic energy revolution. Fossil fuels to renewables, supply has risen, costs have fallen, efficiencies are being seen to increase, and energy diversity is expanding. The United States is now producing its energy more abundantly, more affordably, more cleanly, more efficiently, and I might add from a wider range of sources than anyone ever predicted just a few years ago. I remind people, I said, 15 years ago they told us we'd found it all. There wasn't any more energy to be produced. Conventional wisdom said. Conventional wisdom was radically wrong. Today we are the world's second biggest generator of wind and solar energy. We are number one in producing oil, producing more of it than Saudi Arabia. We're number one in the world in producing gas, producing more of it than Russia. Today, the world's seeking our energy leadership and innovation, and we're providing it. We are now sharing our energy bounty with the world, and by doing so, we're changing the world. In the blink of an eye, we've become a net exporter of natural gas, exporting our LNG to 36 countries, spanning 5 continents. By next year, we'll become a net energy exporter as well. and we are poised to export the technology that unleashed our bounty in the first place. From oil and gas to nuclear technology, no matter which resource of technology we offer, we are paving the way towards liberating our democratic friends and allies from dependence on dictatorial nations that wield their power as a geopolitical weapon. We'll help our friends increase their energy security. We'll strengthen their economic security. We'll bolster their national security. Now, granted, it's not going to happen overnight. As everyone in this room knows, our businesses face blatantly unfair competition from the Kremlin and from China, which are engaged in efforts to make entire continents economically dependent and politically subservient to their ways and their will. But despite these challenges, I believe that if Washington does its job right, we can and we will meet this challenge together. But there's another challenge that we face today. And we stand at this critical crossroads with one road leading to an unprecedented new wave of innovation, the other leading to a catastrophic return to overregulation. The first road is being paved by an already emerging revolution in artificial intelligence. Through AI, our Department of Energy and its national labs are on a path to revolutionizing every part of the energy landscape, from exploration to development to delivery. And to that end, I'm pleased to announce today, Marty, we are going to make a little news, that DOE is committing $20 million for projects through its ARPA-E program to drive early-stage innovation in AI and machine learning. And then there's the other road, in the name of clean energy. Some are proposing to regulate every source besides renewables completely out of existence. The irony is that through innovation, we are already making our energy cleaner. We're producing those zero-emission renewables and more low-emission natural gas than ever before. We're making our coal cleaner than it's ever been. We've driven down mercury and other emissions to historically low levels. And we'll make greater reductions through carbon capture utilization and storage technologies. And as we revitalize these zero emissions nuclear energy projects that we have through advanced reactor technologies, we're going to drive down emissions in our energy mix even further. And that's precisely why the same country that leads the world in oil and gas production leads all nations, including every signatory of the Paris Accord, in reducing energy-related emissions. That's right. The United States leads all countries in the reduction of those energy-related emissions. And you who are in the private sector are a big reason for that. You're a big reason for that progress. You're the reason that from 2005 through 2018, while our GDP rose significantly, America's total greenhouse gas emissions fell dramatically, with the reduction especially strong in the power sector. You're the reason Americans now benefit from some of the lowest electricity rates in the world. They're about half of what our friends in the EU pay, and about 1/3 of what our friends in Germany pay. You're the reason that energy-related carbon emissions fell at an even greater pace. And you're the reason we're doing it all without sacrificing one fuel, one bit of growth, one iota of opportunity, For those who would abandon the spirit of innovation, ban all fuels besides renewables. Here's some tough questions for you. What will you say to the unemployed Americans from the Appalachian region who are about to find well-paying jobs in our LNG export boom and a petrochemical industry that's making a remarkable comeback? Thanks to lower energy costs from that same shale revolution, the President's Council of Economic Advisors' recent report notes that U.S. customers now save more than $203 billion a year, $2,500 every year for a family of four. What are you going to say to those consumers? Thanks to that same revolution, the CEA report notes that from 2005 to 2017, U.S. energy-related greenhouse gas emissions were lowered by 9%. How do they square their support for the environment with advocating a ban on fuels that are making it cleaner? The world's two most reliable 24/7 fuels are nuclear and coal, both of which they want us to ban. What will they say to the world's poorest people, those who don't even have a light bulb, who've never had one iota of light artificially brought into their villages? What do you say to those world's poorest people when those same fuels could bring them reliable, life-saving, life-changing electricity for the first time ever? So as we approach this crossroads, it's certainly my hope that our country chooses wisely. It's my hope that we choose the proven path, the path that ignites prosperity, that ignites and liberates the innovation in nations and empowers people everywhere. It's my hope that we choose the path of innovation, just like Americans always have. The surest path to a more abundant, affordable, clean energy future for America and for the world. Thank you. You want that one?
I'll let you have whichever one you'd like.
Thank you, Marty. I'll sit on the right.
Assume you're more comfortable there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for your comments.
You're welcome.
And we have time for just a couple of questions
Great,
here I'd like
perfect.
to ask you. And, you focused quite a bit of your remarks there on innovation, which I'm pleased to see, and the role that DOE has played in fostering the technologies that we know are going to be necessary to meet growing global demand while aggressively reducing emissions and having a lighter carbon footprint. And the Chamber's very focused on helping accelerate DOE's role in that. So I just asking, how do you see DOE's role today and in the future in engaging that partnership with the business community to help that happen?
Marty, thank you. And I'm going to answer that, but I'm going to deviate just a second and
Sure.
share with you. I just got through having the privilege to do my final cabinet meeting, and so the focus on the cabinet meeting was Americans, veterans, and one of the things that my bet is, if I queried the room in here and polled you about does the Department of Energy have much focus on veterans affairs and veterans issues, most of you would probably say no. And I'm happily to tell you that you'd be wrong. And one of the focuses, and we talked about, and I just want to share this with your audience today, and I know there's some folks from the media that's out there as well, that the Department of Energy has a very vital role to play in in veterans' lives, and it happens to be veterans' health care, which is even an odder thing that people would say was, well, how in the world is the Department of Energy involved with veterans' health care and veterans' health? And it's through our supercomputers. When I got to the agency 3+ years ago or thereabouts, the department, the U.S., we were number 3. We had the third fastest supercomputer in the world. I think China and Switzerland had the 2 top computers at that particular point in time. This administration has committed an increase of over 42% in its national labs budget. From time to time, there are people that criticize this administration about, you don't spend enough money on science, and that's not true. They have really committed substantially in the field of science. By the National Institute of Health, budget's up by 42%. But 43% increase in our national labs, and a lot of that was to fund our supercomputers. Today, as a matter of fact, there was a new list came out yesterday. The United States is now the home of 4 of the 10 fastest supercomputers in the world, and the top 2 computers, Summit at Oak Ridge National Lab, and the other lab, or the other computer, is at Argonne. So the 2 fastest supercomputers in the world. The reason that's important, because the VA has massive amounts of data. Our being able to work that data through our supercomputers to give answers to questions that, frankly, we just did not have the computing capacity to do in the future. For instance, and I'll give you one real-life example. Working with the University of California, San Francisco, and a PhD, MD in neuroscience, Dr. Jeffrey Manley, he's come up with a device about the size of your iPad, 1.5 inches thick. They can take a drop of your blood, put it on a slide, put it inside of this device, and within 10 minutes be able to definitively tell whether you've been concussed. That changes people's lives forever. That's the kind of things that's going on in this administration in the Department of Energy dealing with veterans' health. We're working with the VA on this Million Veterans program, where we got 1 million veterans give a blood sample, obviously. They sign a release on this. We keep it private, but that data is going to be able to give us some real insight into veterans' health that we've never been able to do before, and particularly in the area of brain science and opioid abuse and suicide prevention. Again, this is the kind of things that the average citizen out there is kind of like, you know what, that's what I want my tax money being spent for. And I'm proud to have been a part of that. And it all goes back to this whole thing about innovation, in which we'll circle back around and answer your question about where we're really focused and some of the things that we've done new that fit into this area of innovation. We created a new chief commercialization officer, where we do these X labs now. We go to our national labs. The private sector comes in. We're really focused on the ability for government and the private sector to partner together. One of the things that I learned while I was the governor of the state of Texas is that if you will show that government will be a partner, they got skin in the game, for instance, and we created some programs back in Texas, the Emerging Technology Fund and the Texas Technology Fund that partnered with the private sector. We're trying to do some of those same things at DOE, where that companies that they just might not have the heft to be able to get their idea to market, but they can come in with some of the incredible brains at our national labs, partner with them, prove up their technology in some cases, and go to the market with it. So the other thing that we've done is to create these lab partnering service website, and it's just a place where the private sector can go. It's an app that they can link up and find the capabilities at our national labs. So I'll finish up with this. Our 17 national labs, any country in the world would love to just have one lab like this. We got 17 of them that are, across the board, the the lab up in Golden, Colorado that works almost exclusively on the renewable side of things and the work that they're doing up there. Obviously Oak Ridge and Argonne, Lawrence Livermore out in California, the work at PNNL, you guys at Idaho National Lab, you're going to be building a facility out there for these small modular reactors, and we're partnering with NuScale. I mean, I hope all of you leave here with a whole new appreciation, number one, for the Department of Energy and the work that they're doing. Oh, by the way, don't worry about the Department of Energy missing a step. Dan Bruett, who will soon to be the Secretary, not in acting, but he will hopefully be passed out of the full Senate and approved here before Christmas. Be a good Christmas present to America. He is a great, focused, disciplined young man who knows the agency well, knows the Hill well, and as a matter of fact, I think they'll be up in their game.
Well, it's a great segue for my wrap-up question, which is, as you enter your final days in the Forrestal building, what do you see as the biggest opportunities and challenges that Dan's going to be facing when he walks in?
I'll tell you what the biggest challenge is, and the biggest challenge is the competitors around the world. China and cybersecurity, and I am so thankful as an American citizen that this administration understood the importance of funding our cybersecurity, and we stood up an Office of Cybersecurity and Emergency Response, which is called CSER, S-E-S-E-R, and the administration analyzed and saw that America's ability to protect our electrical grid from these cyber attacks that are going on, I will suggest to you, is both the greatest opportunity for us, because it's going to be in America's, in a partnership with America's private sector, our national labs, with DARPA, our friends over at the DOD that we're working with on cybersecurity, that we're able to deliver the tools to our allied partners around the world. I think that's the greatest opportunity for us to be able to maintain our position, to maintain the safety, security of our SCADA systems and our electrical grid, etc. It's what I worry about. We can't fall behind. This race that's ongoing about supercomputing. In 18 months, there'll be 2 exascale computers coming online. I think Oak Ridge gets one, Argonne gets the other one. They will be 30 times faster than the fastest supercomputer in the world today, which we operate. 30 times faster. That's in 18 months. And the race is on, though. The Chinese are spending massive amounts of money to be able to get to quantum. And here's what I'll wrap up with. Whoever gets to quantum first wins. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Secretary, on behalf of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and on behalf of everyone in the room here, thank you for your service, and all best of luck to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.